This is Week 10 in Production, Theater 191, Dr. Christiana Muldrum-Hardelich. In this lecture, we will go over how a play goes from script to stage. It takes a lot of work, a lot of imagination, and a whole lot of people. So we'll do an overview today of what that kind of process takes. Let's think about from page to stage. So if we're looking at this flow chart, you have the written script. This is where it all begins. That's your source material. And then from the written script, it takes designers, a director, actors, choreographer, and a whole lot of other people that we'll get to in the next slide to produce designs, staging, acting, and choreography that become the play. Design, staging, acting, and choreography, when they come together, create the theatrical world that we want to see on stage. They can transport us, they can teach us new truths about humanity, and entertain us in all kinds of interesting ways. So let's go over just how many people it takes to put on a play. This flowchart sort of gives you a sense of the very many jobs and the very many hands it takes to put on a play. Generally, you'll start with a producer up here. The producer is the money. They're the ones who decide, yes, we are doing this play. They give it the final okay. Sometimes the director is also the producer, but not always. You'll also have a production manager. That's the person who is in charge of coordinating all of the designers and the technicians and everyone else that makes sure that the designs get made. The director, who comes up with the ideas, we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this lecture today about the director's job, is in charge of the dramaturg, the music director, the choreographer, the stage manager, the actors, also the costume designer, the lighting designer, the scenic designer, the sound designer, and possibly the projection designer. So the director is at the top of this hierarchy right up here. And then you have all of these different artists who help to create the world, but they don't do all of the work themselves. Underneath the music director, you'll also have a conductor and then musicians. Underneath the choreographer, you will need a dance captain. Underneath the stage manager, you'll have an assistant stage manager, a deck manager, and a running crew, because the stage manager won't do all of their work on their own. The costume designer will also have a costumer, and this level is where the production manager really gets involved to coordinate. The costumer will have a crew that does stitchers and makeup and wigs and cutters and drapers and milliners. A run crew for the costumes specifically that will help actors get in and out of costume changes and help them with their wigs and help them with their makeup during the run of the show. The master electrician, who works with the lighting designer, they're going to have a build crew of electricians that will help hang all of the lights. During performances, there'll be a light board operator, a follow spot operator, and a deck electrician to fix last minute things. The scenic designer will have a master painter. The build crew will be made of painters and carpenters and welders, because you'll also have a master carpenter who will help make the set come together. The person in charge of the master electrician, painters, carpenters, sound engineers, and prop masters is the technical director, who doesn't make the same sort of choices as the director makes, but helps coordinate and make sure all of the people who are in charge of the tiny, smaller jobs are able to work together and meet deadlines. A sound engineer who will work with the sound designer will also use audio technicians, and there will be a soundboard operator and microphones who are in charge of making sure that you can hear everything that happens on stage. You'll also have a prop master, and so you'll have people who are building the props and dressing the set, so putting on all of the different little bits and pieces that make the difference between a room and a home. And then during the run of the show, you'll have a run crew that will be in charge of making sure that the props will get where they need to be. So as you can see here, it's not just the actors on stage. It's not just the actors and the stage manager. It's not just the director. There are so many people involved in making a play move from the page to the stage. And now we'll spend a little more time talking about actors and directors. So actors and directors are the two jobs we hear the most about and what we'll focus on in our in-class demonstrations this week. An actor. And these two quotes, these two descriptions are from our textbook, The Theatrical World. So acting is a paradoxical activity. Actors must explore the emotional world of the character, but at the same time, they must meet a set of technical demands, such as articulating and projecting their words so they can be understood by an audience, applying a voice and physicality appropriate for their character, following prescribed movements dictated by the director, adjusting to the response of the audience, and dealing with any mishaps that might occur, i.e. missing props, actors forgetting lines, etc. This balancing act, what one critic called a special gift for double consciousness, is one of the skills that separate merely competent actors from great ones. And so an actor isn't just somebody who memorizes their lines, but they do a lot more than that. The director is what we often refer to as the captain of the collaborative team. They're responsible for all of the artistic aspects of the production. They're the person who makes sure that all of the pieces are put together to make a coherent, effective, and entertaining artistic whole. Above all, the director provides the overall artistic vision for the production, organizing and leading the entire collaborative process to ensure that the production is artistically unified according to this vision. In this capacity, the director stands in for the audience throughout the preparation and rehearsal of the production. They are the spectator's eye. Without these two people, and really without the actors, you can't have a performance. Without a director, you can't have a very good performance. And so these two roles are very important in creating what we finally see on stage. But as I just went over, there are so many more roles involved in getting from a first rehearsal or a first design meeting to that opening night performance. So here's a little bit more about the actor and the work of the actor. It is not just memorizing lines, it's embodiment. It's the intellectual work of understanding the character, which we've done some in class. It involves research, so if you're in the 1920s, you want to know what it's like to be in the 1920s so that you can make that truth real for an audience on stage. It sometimes involves stage combat or dance, so you have to keep all of those skills up to date. It involves the emotional life of the character, making sure that you know how sad or how angry they are, and that you can perform that in a way that's safe for you as a person and conveys the emotional truth for the audience. Ultimately, the work of the actor is to make the character and the world real on stage for the audience. And a lot of that is done through what we call text and subtext. Text and subtext is primarily what an actor figures out once they've already memorized their lines. Because the words we say are just as important as how we say them. And that's sort of the difference between text and subtext. So text is the precise words of the script, the thing that the playwright has given you. The subtext is all of the additional meaning that is unsaid, but meant in the way that the text is conveyed. So for example, a character says, "It's fine." Those words on their own can mean a variety of different things, but the subtext might mean, "I'm dealing with it and it's not okay, but we're not going to have this conversation right now, so we're going to have to move on." So it's that sort of idea between the text and the subtext. You can think of it like the glacier, right? The text is right on the top, and the subtext is everything else going on. It's the inner monologue of the character. That work ultimately is the actor's job on stage, to really convey the meaning and the truth of what the actor is doing. And then we have the director's job. So the director's first task is to understand the script. If they don't know what the show is about, literally no one will know what the show is about. It will be a mess. So the director's first job is to do a lot of close reading, which is something that you all have already learned to do in our class this semester. Then they will lead the designers and actors and technicians toward a unified production idea. They will stage the play, so it's the director's job to figure out exactly where everyone is going on stage all the time. They'll keep the production process working together, facilitating conversations between designers and actors. They'll work with choreographers, dance choreographers, fight choreographers, intimacy choreographers, to create the world of the play and to make sure that everything is safe for the actors on stage, but looks exciting for audiences. The director is also responsible for taking a concept to production. And so when they're captaining the ship, they're not just saying, "We're doing this play," and the meaning will come up from our production, our rehearsal process. Generally, a director will come in and say, I think that this play is really at its core about this concept. And this concept is going to guide all of the choices that we make in the play. So it'll guide design choices, it'll guide staging choices, it'll guide acting choices. So let's take a play like Shakespeare's Macbeth, which most people know. A play about a Scottish thane who meets a bunch of witches in the woods, and they tell him that he's going to be the king, and he takes that as prophecy, and so he and his wife go and murder the king, and tragedy ensues, let's say. So the text between multiple productions of Macbeth remains the same. This is one of the most produced plays out there in the last 400 years since it was written. The director will take a particular concept to Macbeth. So what if Macbeth is that the whole thing happens from the perspective of the witches? And so this play isn't really about Macbeth, but it's about the way that these witches oversee the predestination of kings. So that choice from the director will impact staging design and acting choices. So for example, I worked on a production that took this concept. I did the lighting design for it. And here are a couple photos from it. Right here you can see one of the witches on a tree-like structure who is guiding Lady Macbeth to make choices. I think this is from her mad scene. Then we have another scene here at the end where the three witches are surrounding a dead Macbeth at the end of the play because every choice that they influenced him with has led to this point. And so you get a different type of story, a different take on Macbeth from that directorial choice. So a few words about staging. The stage area is generally divided up into 6 quadrants, and I'm talking about traditional proscenium stages, those straightforward audiences in one section, and everybody else who is on stage is straight ahead of them. In the theater, we generally use stage left, stage right, and house left and house right to be clear about where we want people to go on stage. Generally, the director will sit out in the audience, so out here. And if they're talking to an actor on stage and they say, go to your left, that will be stage left, because the actor who is looking out towards the audience, their left is opposite from the director's left. And that's one of the reasons we use that vocabulary. Then we'll talk about upstage, downstage, and center. Center's pretty obvious, right? It's right in the middle. But we use upstage and downstage to talk about further away or closer to the audience. And the words up and down actually come from much older theaters in which they had a raked stage, which means that the stage floor was elevated so that further away it was further up and closer was down. And so this up and down is how we use to say nearer to the audience and further away on when we're staging. And it's a good shorthand so that directors can communicate really quickly and easily and clearly with actors and designers and the stage manager so that the movement gets coordinated on stage. The other unsung hero of the rehearsal hall is the stage manager. If the director is the captain, the stage manager is the first mate. And in rehearsals, the stage manager records the director's decisions about blocking and notes for the actors, keeps track of logistical and scheduling details, communicates what goes on in rehearsals to the rest of the team. And stage managers also have several key responsibilities and tasks to perform in each phase of a production, including scheduling and running rehearsals, communicating the director's wishes to designs and craftspeople, coordinating the work of the stage crew, calling cues and possibly actors' entrances during performance, overseeing the entire show each time it is performed. So once the show gets to performance, the stage manager is 100% in control of what is happening. It's a very important role and often unseen in the theater.